Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Opening the Dhamma Eye, Part 2, by Ajahn Chah. The Buddha said, "You should know the world. It dazzles like a king's royal carriage. Fools are entranced, but the wise are not deceived." It's not that the Buddha wanted us to go all over the world looking at everything, studying everything about it. He simply wanted us to watch this mind, which attaches to the world. When the Buddha told us to look at the world, he didn't want us to get stuck in it. He wanted us to investigate it. Because the world is born just in this mind. Sitting in the shade of a tree, you can look at the world. When there is desire, the world comes into being, right there. Wanting is the birthplace of the world. To extinguish wanting is to extinguish the world. When we sit in meditation, we want the mind to become peaceful, but it's not peaceful. Why is this? We don't want to think, but we think. It's like a person who goes to sit on an ant's nest. The ants just keep on biting him. When the mind is the world, then even sitting still with our eyes closed, all we see is the world. Pleasure, sorrow, anxiety, confusion. It all arises. Why is this? It's because we still haven't realized Dhamma. If the mind is like this, the meditator can't endure the worldly Dhammas. They don't investigate. It's just the same as if they were sitting on an ant's nest. But most Dhamma practitioners don't see it like that. If they feel content, they just follow contentment. Feeling discontent, they just follow that. Following the worldly dharmas, the mind becomes the world. Sometimes we may think, oh, I can't do it, it's beyond me. So we don't even try. This is because the mind is full of defilements. The worldly dhammas prevent the path from arising. We can't endure in the development of morality, concentration, and wisdom. It's just like that person sitting on the ant's nest. They can't do anything. The ants are biting and crawling all over them. They're immersed in confusion and agitation. They can't rid their sitting place of the danger, so they just sit there, suffering. So it is with our practice. The worldly dhammas exist in the minds of worldly beings. When those beings wish to find peace, the worldly dhammas arise right there. When the mind is ignorant, there is only darkness. When knowledge arises, the mind is illumined, because ignorance and knowledge are born in the same place. When ignorance has arisen, knowledge can't enter, because the mind has accepted ignorance. When knowledge has arisen, ignorance cannot stay. So the Buddha exhorted his disciples to practice with the mind, because the world is born in this mind. The 8 worldly dhammas are there. The Eightfold Path, that is, investigation through calm and insight meditation, our diligent effort, and the wisdom we develop. All these things loosen the grip of the world. Attachment, aversion, and delusion become lighter. And being lighter, we know them as such. If we experience fame, material gain, praise, happiness, or suffering, we're aware of it. We must know these things before we can transcend the world, because the world is within us. So the Dharma practitioner must become one who witnesses the Dharma for themselves. They know for themselves whether the worldly dharmas have left or not, whether or not the path has been developed. When the path has been well developed, it purges the worldly dharmas. It becomes stronger and stronger. Right view grows as wrong view decreases, until finally the path destroys defilements. Either that or defilements will destroy the path. Right view and wrong view. There are only these two ways. Wrong view has its tricks as well, you know. It has its wisdom, but it's a wisdom that's misguided. The meditator who begins to develop the path experiences a separation. Eventually, it's as if they were two people, one in the world and the other on the path. They divide, they pull apart. Whenever one's investigating, there's this separation. And it continues on and on until the mind reaches insight, vipassana. Or maybe it's vipassana, corruption of insight. Having tried to establish wholesome results in our practice, seeing them, we attach to them. This type of clinging comes from our wanting to get something from the practice. This is corruption of insight, the wisdom of defilements. That is defiled wisdom. Some people develop goodness and cling to it. They develop purity and cling to that. Or they develop knowledge and cling to that. The action of clinging to that goodness or knowledge is corruption of insight, infiltrating our practice. So when you develop vipassana, be careful. Watch out for corruption of insight, because they're so close that sometimes you can't tell them apart. But with right view, we can see them both clearly. if it's vipassana, the corruption, there will be suffering arising at times as a result. If it's true insight, there's no suffering. There is peace. Both happiness and unhappiness are silenced. This you can see for yourself. This practice requires endurance. Some people, when they come to practice, don't want to be bothered by anything. They don't want friction. But there's friction the same as before. We must try to find an end to friction through friction itself. So if there's friction in your practice, then it's right. If there's no friction, it's not right. You just eat and sleep as much as you want. When you want to go anywhere or say anything, you just follow your desires. The teaching of the Buddha grates. The supramundane goes against the worldly. Right view opposes wrong view. Purity opposes impurity. The teaching grates against our desires. These days, in the same way, the Buddha's teaching is contrary to our hearts. People want to indulge in greed and hatred, but the Buddha won't let them. They want to be deluded, but the Buddha mind destroys delusion. So the mind of the Buddha is contrary to that of worldly beings. The world calls the body beautiful, but the Buddha says it's not beautiful. They say the body belongs to us. He says, not so. They say it's substantial. The Buddha mind says it's not. Right view is above the world. Worldly beings merely follow the flow of the stream. The worldly dhammas became like refuse for the Buddha. They lost all meaning. He sat over them, but they didn't obstruct his mind in any way. Demons came to try to overcome him, but he just sat there in samadhi, subduing the world, until finally he became enlightened to the Dhamma and completely defeated Mara. That is, he defeated the world. So the practice of developing the path is that which destroys defilements. Happiness, unhappiness, pleasure and sadness. None of them is us, but we take them to be so. These things come into contact with us, and we see a lump of atta, or self. Wherever there is self, there you will find happiness, unhappiness, and everything else. So the Buddha said to destroy this lump of self. That is, to destroy Sakkaya Ditthi, self-view. When self is destroyed, non-self naturally arises. We take nature to be us and ourselves to be nature. So we don't know nature truly. If it's good, we laugh with it. If it's bad, we cry over it. But nature is simply sankhara, conditioned things. Pacifying the sankhara is real happiness. How do we pacify them? We simply remove clinging and see them as they really are. So there is truth in this world. Trees, mountains, flowers, animals, all live according to their own truth. They are born and die following their nature. It's just we humans who aren't true. We see it and make a fuss over it. But nature is impassive. It just is as it is. We laugh, we cry, we kill, but nature remains in truth. It is truth. No matter how happy or sad we are, this body just follows its own nature. It's born, it grows up and ages. changing and getting older all the time. It follows nature in this way. Whoever takes the body to be themselves and carries it around with them will suffer. When the mind is Dhamma, it stops. It has attained peace. There's no longer a need to do anything special, because the mind is Dhamma already. The outside is Dhamma. The inside is Dhamma. The one who knows is Dhamma. The state is Dhamma, and that which knows the state is Dhamma. It is one. It is free. This nature is not born. It does not age nor sicken. This nature does not die. This nature is neither happy nor sad, neither big nor small, heavy nor light, neither short nor long, black nor white, male or female. There's nothing you can compare it to. No convention can reach it. That is why we say Nibbana has no colour. All colours are merely conventions. The state which is beyond the world is beyond the reach of worldly conventions and concepts. So the Dhamma is that which is beyond the world. It is that which each person should see for themselves. It is beyond language, You can't put it into words. You can only talk about ways and means of realizing it. The person who has seen it for themselves has finished their work.